Welcome to Shad's Guitar Show. Whether it's the gear or the players who made the gear famous, join me each episode as we discuss all things guitar. Well, hey, what's up everyone, and welcome into yet another exciting episode of Shad's Guitar Show. And as I always say, and I truly mean, I am very glad that you are joining me for this episode. This one's going to take a little bit of a detour from all things guitar, though bass guitars are definitely guitars, and focus on the earliest precision basses. The company that I own, Retro Sound Guitars, I actually built a 51 P bass style bass, and it's really cool. And I have a really good friend, Chris, who's a listener of the show and a great friend of mine. And he's always acquiring these super awesome, kind of exotic basses, really boutique and high-end stuff. So I was thinking about a bass that he just got because we were talking about some ins and outs of that bass on Sunday. So I thought, you know what, I've never done an episode related to bass in any way. And, I thought we'd just kind of go back to the very beginnings of the electric bass and, kind of how Leo Fender envisioned it and the design he came up with, and really how it changed bass guitar and moved bass playing forward forever. The Fender Precision bass, often shortened to the P bass, is an electric bass guitar model manufactured by Fender since 1951. The Precision bass is a solid body, 4-stringed, full-scale bass equipped with a single pickup and a 20-fret maple neck. It produces a characteristically deep and full-bodied sound. Now, obviously, as time has gone on, there's 5 and even 6-string versions. But, in the very beginning, obviously 4 strings. So, Leo Fender designed the Precision bass prototype in 1950 for big band bassists, and it was brought to the market the following year. Roy Johnson of Lionel Hampton's big band was among the first bassists to use the Precision bass in a concert setting. Music critic Leonard Feather wrote about this new development in Downbeat magazine, expressing surprise at hearing bass sounds from a guitar. But adoption by upright bass players was slow, however, and the Precision bass did not find widespread success until the emergence of new styles of music like rock and roll and Motown, with the Precision bass's guitar-like format allowing guitarists to easily transition to this new instrument. The Precision bass, as the first commercially successful electric bass, was truly a landmark in the evolution of musical instruments, delivering punch and presence while enabling guitar-like playability. Some historians consider the Precision bass to have a greater impact on popular music than Fender's widely known Telecaster and Stratocaster electric guitars. Its companion bass amplifier, the Fender Bassman, also proved influential. Since its release, the Precision bass has remained amongst the best-selling and most imitated electric bass guitars of all time. So the Precision bass uses a body shape similar to the early Esquire Telecaster models, but with the additional bass side horn, creating a double cutaway silhouette that provided better balance considering the long, heavy neck required on a bass guitar. In the initial incarnation, the Precision bass used squared-off shoulders without contouring, but rounded edges and contouring were introduced after the similarly styled Stratocaster release. The body was made of 2 pieces of matched and laminated ash, which was chosen for its appearance rather than tone. Alder would become standard on models with sunburst finishes, as alder was cheaper and easier to finish. Fender chose a 34-inch scale length for the Precision bass after much trial and error. 34 inches proved long enough to achieve the resonance Fender wanted, but it was short enough to avoid uncomfortably wide fret spacing. Not prioritizing the player's comfort was considered market suicide by Leo Fender. The 34-inch scale length would go on to become standard for full-scale electric basses. Pre-1957 models used a headstock similar to the Telecaster, but this was later changed to bring it more in line with the Stratocaster styling. The neck, initially made from a single piece of maple, was bolted on using 4 screws rather than glued onto the body. The neck used a large C-shape with a 7.25-inch fretboard radius, and it has earned the vintage Precision bass necks the baseball bat comparison. Modern versions typically use a flatter 9.5-inch radius. Pre-1957, strings were loaded through the body and over a bridge equipped with two pressed fiber saddles. Post-1957, the strings were loaded at the bridge, which was later updated with four saddles made of steel. The bridge was initially equipped with a chrome cover with a foam insert to help mute the strings and prevent unwanted overtones and sustain. Players, however, often removed this cover to achieve a more cutting tone, and Fender eventually stopped including them. The original model's pickguard covered much of the Precision bass's body, including both horns. The later redesign was more Strat-like, covering less of the body, but now with the bass's controls mounted directly onto it, as was a finger rest or tug bar below the G string. At different times, the pickguard has been black, white, or tortoiseshell. The first pickups used on a Precision bass consisted of a simple single-coil design with four Alnico 5 magnet pole pieces, each placed directly below a string. Early on, a large chrome cover was placed over the pickup to provide electronic shielding. Leo Fender was dissatisfied with the pickup's hum, however, and the pole piece placement meant that the pickups generated strong attack transients that were very hard on speakers. Fender solved the hum problem by splitting the pickup into two separate coils, which were wired out of phase with the magnets oriented with reverse polarities. The transient problem was solved by placing the pole pieces on either side of the string rather than under them, smoothing out the attack and improving tone and gain. These pickups have remained standard in Precision basses ever since they were introduced in 1957. Prior to the arrival of electric basses, players relied on upright basses, which were large and cumbersome to transport, and increasingly difficult to hear as popular music became louder. And around this time, many big bands were downsizing and asking guitarists to double as bass players, creating a need for a guitar-like bass to avoid players having to learn upright bass technique. Fender was not the first to explore the idea of a solid-body electric bass as the solution. Audiovox had released such a bass in 1935, but it sold poorly, and most other companies pursuing the electrification of bass kept to the upright format. Leo Fender, choosing to design his bass to be played in a horizontal angle similar to the guitar, would successfully allow guitarists to easily transition to playing bass. The Precision bass was first offered for sale in October of 1951, with its trade show debut happening the following July at the 1952 NAMM show. Fender applied for the patent for his bass guitar design in November of that year, and it was granted on March 24, 1953. The Precision bass had an initial retail price of $199.50. The Precision bass gained little notice at first. Distributors were aghast at the new instruments, and few artists showed any interest. To promote his bass, Fender traveled the country trying to win over musicians face-to-face in nightclubs and concert halls, where he found the most interest from jazz players. Band leader Lionel Hampton became an early champion of the Precision bass. His bass player, Roy Johnson, used it extensively, later stating that he had no trouble transitioning to the new bass, which he began using in performances the day he received it. Chicago's budget instrument retailer, K Musical Instruments Company, was one of the first companies to realize the potential of the Precision bass and licensed their own models from Fender. These K basses were taken up by influential players like Chubby Jackson and Donald Duck Dunn. As smaller, louder groups became more popular mid-decade, the Precision bass slowly started replacing most upright basses, but players faced issues with the poor quality of amplification at the time. Fender's existing guitar amplifiers, such as the 15-inch speaker-equipped Fender Pro that the Precision bass was initially paired with, proved unable to handle lower frequencies at loud volumes, forcing the company to design the first ever dedicated bass amplifier, the Bassman. The Bassman was pivotal to legitimizing the Precision bass and became an influential amp in its own right, amongst guitarists even more so than bassists. The Precision bass's most significant revision came in 1957. The headstock shape and pickguard were redesigned to loosely resemble the Strat, with the pickguard no longer covering the upper horn, but now extending along the lower edge of the body to cover the control knob area. This new pickguard was made of a single layer of gold anodized aluminum, with the electronics, including a new split-coil humbucking pickup, mounted directly onto it. The pickguard material scratched easily, though, and was soon replaced with tortoiseshell plastic. Strings were now loaded through the bridge rather than going through the body, and the bridge was upgraded to using their 4 saddles for better intonation. These changes solidified the Precision bass's basic design, which has remained largely unchanged since. In 1959, a glued-on rosewood fingerboard, featuring clay-style dot position markers, replaced the one-piece maple neck, and this remained standard until 1966 or 67, when the now CBS-owned Fender company began to offer a separate laminate maple fingerboard capped on a maple neck as another option. Fewer than 200 Precision basses were sold a year in the early 50s, but this increased to around 1,000 a year by 1959. By 1960, the Precision bass was becoming an industry standard in genres like rock and pop. Brian Wilson taught himself to play bass in a matter of days with the Precision his father bought him, and he went on to score numerous hits with the Beach Boys throughout the decade. Meanwhile, James Jamerson provided the bass lines for a wave of Motown hits using a 1962 Precision bass he dubbed the Funk Machine. The original Telecaster-derived design, with a few updates, was reintroduced in 1968 as the Fender Telecaster bass. 2 artist signature models would later use that Telecaster bass body style, the Mike Dirnt Precision bass using today's standard single-coil split pickups, and the Sting Precision bass using a single-coil pickup, as did the earliest design. In 1972, an updated version of the 1968 Telecaster bass was released. Its noteworthy change was the switch to a large humbucker pickup designed by the inventor of the PAF, Seth Lover, who had joined Fender in 1967. Numerous bass players have co-designed signature model Precision basses with Fender, including Sting of The Police, Mike Dirnt of Green Day, Tony Franklin, Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses and Velvet Revolver, Steve Harris of Iron Maiden, Roger Waters of Pink Floyd, and Nate Mendel of the Foo Fighters. Since its release, the Precision bass has remained among the best-selling and most imitated electric bass guitars on the market. After leaving his namesake company, Leo Fender himself would go on to co-design the Music Man Stingray, which was effectively an updated version of the Precision bass. And I would venture to say that the Precision bass is probably the most recorded bass in history, though not being, a bass player, I can't say that for certain, but just given the music that we all listen to, the timeless classic rock of the 60s and 70s, and even into the 80s, I would say it's pretty safe to say that the Precision bass has found its way onto more recordings than probably any other bass. And, like all other things, bass guitar has evolved. There are many, many amazing boutique companies making recreations of the vintage basses, but also have moved bass guitars forward and, in incredible ways. But, I don't know, there's just something about those vintage designs, those early 50s P basses that just look so cool to me. And, I really dig them. And the one that I built, the Retro Sound Pocket King model, I really love. And it's such a fun bass to take out and play. It's limiting, obviously, with one single coil pickup. It doesn't do nearly as much as modern basses do. And certainly for a working modern bass player, it's not going to be a super functional instrument, but it is a quirky and super cool piece of, bass guitar history. If you enjoyed this look at the early Precision bass, make sure to share this episode with a bass playing friend. And make sure that you leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening, please. It's so helpful to the show. Make sure you're following me on Instagram at Shad's Guitar Show. And the next time you're over on YouTube watching videos, make sure to head over to Shad's Guitar Show and subscribe to the show there. I really appreciate you guys coming along for the ride. And as I always say, if you'll continue to listen, I'll continue to talk about all things guitar.